Metz, France, November 12, 1944. The city was dying in pieces. Third Army had been hammering the fortress town for 6 weeks. Sherman tanks chewed through cobblestone streets under mortar fire. Infantry companies bled out, taking apartment blocks room by room. Flamethrower teams cleared basements filled with German holdouts. The air smelled like cordite, wet stone, and the sickly sweet rot of bodies trapped under rubble. According to Third Army after-action reports, Metz was supposed to fall in 3 days. It had been 42. The Germans had turned every window, every chimney, every rooftop into a firing position. They'd had years to dig in, and they knew every angle. Snipers ruled the ruins. Moving during daylight meant dying. U.S. infantry learned to hug walls, sprint between craters, and pray. But American sniper teams were supposed to be the counter. They were supposed to be the answer. They were dying faster than anyone else. Corporal Michael Donovan crouched in the shattered remains of a textile warehouse on Rue de la Chèvre, 200 meters from the Moselle River. He was 23 years old. He'd been in Metz for 11 days. He'd already lost 2 spotter partners. His current spotter, Private First Class Eddie Lang, lay beside him behind a mound of broken masonry, scanning the opposite block through binoculars. Lang was 19. He'd been with Donovan for 4 days. That made him the longest surviving spotter Donovan had worked with in Metz. Movement. Lang whispered, "Third floor. Left window. Curtain just moved." Donovan shifted his M1903 Springfield onto the rubble, settling the crosshairs on the indicated window. Standard U.S. Army sniper doctrine called for spotter confirmation, range estimation, wind reading, then a single well-aimed shot. Maximum engagement range in urban terrain, 300 meters. Doctrine emphasized patience, discipline, and scope focus. Scope focus was killing them. The Springfield's Weaver 330C scope had a field of view of 14 feet at 100 yards, roughly 4 degrees. At combat distances in Metz, that meant Donovan could see a space the size of a doorway. Everything else disappeared. German snipers had figured this out. They worked in pairs. One drew attention. The other flanked and killed the spotter. Once the spotter died, the primary sniper was alone, blind, and next. Donovan had watched it happen twice. His first spotter, Corporal Jimmy Raines, died on November 4th in a pharmacy on Rue Moselle. Donovan had been tracking a German rifleman in a clock tower. Raines was scanning support positions. A second German, concealed in a collapsed storefront 30 degrees off Donovan's sight line, put a mouse around through Raines' temple from 70 meters. Donovan never saw the shooter, never heard the report over ambient gunfire. Raines just stopped breathing. His second spotter, Private Luis Ortega, lasted 6 days. He died on November 10th near the Port des Allemands gate. Same pattern. Donovan engaged a visible target. Ortega called corrections. A flanking shooter Donovan couldn't see because he was locked onto his scope killed Ortega with a chest shot. Donovan broke contact and dragged the body back. Ortega bled out before they reached the aid station. Now it was Lang's turn to lie in the rubble and hope the Germans hadn't positioned a second shooter. "I don't see a rifle," Lang said quietly. "Could be civilian." Curtain moved against the wind direction. Donovan replied, "Someone's behind it. Range 310 meters. Wind left to right, maybe 4 miles per hour." Donovan adjusted. The reticle settled on the dark gap behind the curtain. His finger rested on the trigger. 2 pounds of pressure. 1 breath. Standard engagement. But his mind wasn't on the target. It was on the alley to his right, the shattered storefront to his left, the roofline above, the cellar window below, all the places he couldn't see because his right eye was glued to a 4-degree tunnel of magnified glass. German doctrine, as outlined in capture training manuals from the 462nd Volksgrenadier Division, emphasized Schwerpunktbildung, concentration of force at decisive points. Their sniper teams didn't operate as individuals. They operated as interlocking fields of fire. One marksman fixed the target. Another exploited the blind spot. U.S. doctrine hadn't adapted. American snipers still trained for one-on-one duels at known distances on rifle ranges. Metz wasn't a rifle range. Take the shot, Lang whispered. Donovan's jaw tightened. If he fired, his position was compromised. Muzzle flash. Sound. Dust. If there was a second German out there, and there was always a second German, Lang would die in the next 10 seconds. He eased his finger off the trigger. "We're moving," he said. "What?" "Back door." Now, they crawled through the rubble and exited through a collapsed loading dock. No shot fired. No contact. 30 seconds later, they heard the sharp crack of a carabiner 98K from the direction they just abandoned. 2 rounds, precisely where they'd been lying. Lang's hands were shaking when they reached the rally point. "They knew," he said. "They knew we were there. They always know," Donovan replied. He didn't explain further. Didn't tell Lang that the German sniper teams had figured out something the U.S. Army hadn't. That American snipers became blind the moment they looked through a scope. That tunnel vision was a fatal design flaw. That the doctrine written in training manuals at Fort Benning didn't account for urban warfare against an enemy who'd spent 4 years perfecting counter-sniper tactics. Donovan had written 3 incident reports. He'd briefed his platoon leader, Lieutenant Schaefer, twice. He'd requested changes to spotter positioning, recommended counter-surveillance protocols, suggested adopting German tactics. Nothing changed. Doctrine was doctrine. Orders were orders. And spotters kept dying. That night, Donovan sat in a bombed-out cellar that 2nd Battalion was using as a command post. A kerosene lamp cast shadows on the walls. Rifle maintenance was a ritual. Pull the bolt, run patches through the barrel, check the scope mount, oil the action. The Springfield was a beautiful weapon, accurate to 800 yards in the right hands, reliable, proven, also narrow, limited, and designed for a war that no longer existed. Donovan set the rifle down and pulled a small rectangular mirror from his pack. It was a standard issue shaving mirror, 2 inches by 3 inches, metal back. He'd taken it from Ortega's kit after Ortega died. He'd been carrying it for 2 days, turning an idea over in his mind, an idea the Army would never approve, an idea that might get him court-martialed, an idea that might keep Lang alive. He unrolled a strip of medical tape. The modification took 11 minutes. Donovan positioned the mirror at a 45-degree angle on the left side of the Springfield's barrel, just forward of the scope mount, and secured it with 3 layers of medical tape. The angle was calculated. It gave him a reflected view of the space 60 to 90 degrees off his primary sight line, the exact zone where German flanking shooters positioned themselves. It was crude. It was improvised. It violated at least 4 equipment regulations. It worked. Holding the rifle at eye level, Donovan could now do something no sniper in Metz, American or German, could do. Maintain scope focus on a primary target while simultaneously monitoring his flank through peripheral vision. The mirror didn't provide perfect clarity. It didn't give him magnification or precision, but it gave him awareness. It gave him the one thing that had gotten 6 U.S. snipers killed in Metz over 3 weeks: a second angle of vision. He dry fired the weapon 6 times, testing balance and handling. The mirror added negligible weight. It didn't interfere with bolt operation or scope alignment. The tape was secure. The reflection was stable. Lang watched from across the cellar. "What the hell is that?" "Insurance," Donovan said. "That's not standard issue. Neither is dying. Schaefer sees that. He'll lose his mind. Schaefer's not the one lying in the rubble." Lang didn't argue. He'd been a spotter long enough, 4 days, to understand the math. The next morning, November 13th, they returned to Rue de la Chèvre. 3rd Army Intelligence had reported increased German sniper activity near the river crossing. 2 American scouts had been killed at dawn. A supply truck had taken fire. Battalion wanted the sniper positions cleared before engineers could move bridging equipment forward. Donovan and Lang moved into an observation post in a collapsed apartment building with a clear view of the Moselle's east bank. The building had been hit by artillery. Half the structure was gone. The stairwell was a crater. They climbed through the wreckage and set up in what had been a 3rd-floor bedroom. One wall was missing. The floor sagged. Rain dripped through holes in the ceiling. Lang muttered, "Good field of view." He picked up a little Korean from another spotter. It was a running joke. Nobody knew why. Donovan settled the Springfield onto a broken dresser, angling the barrel through the empty wall. The scope gave him a magnified view of the riverbank, shattered docks, overturned boats, a burned-out fuel depot, 300 meters across open ground. And in his peripheral vision, captured in the small tape mirror, he could see the ruined bakery 40 meters to his left. They waited. Combat sniping, according to U.S. Army Field Manual 2310, is defined as the art of delivering precision fire on selected targets from concealed positions. The manual emphasized patience as the primary skill. In Metz, patience meant lying motionless in freezing rain for 6 hours while scanning for a target that might never appear. It meant ignoring cold, hunger, and the cramping pain of staying absolutely still. Most soldiers couldn't do it. Snipers learned, or they didn't survive. Donovan had learned. At 1340 hours, according to later battalion logs, Lang spotted movement, far side, near the fuel depot. Someone's moving between the drums. Donovan adjusted. The crosshairs tracked slowly across the ruins. There, a flicker of field gray uniform behind a collapsed storage rack. The figure moved again, low and deliberate, carrying a rifle, definitely German. Range? Donovan asked. 320 meters. Wind negligible. The German stopped behind a concrete pylon, partially concealed, scanning the American side of the river with binoculars. He wasn't a sniper, probably a forward observer calling artillery corrections, but he was a legitimate target, and he was exposed. Donovan settled the reticle on the German center mass and began his breathing cycle. Exhale, pause, squeeze. Then he saw it. In the mirror, a second figure, moving through the rubble of the bakery to Donovan's left, 40 meters away, carrying a scoped carabiner 98K. The German sniper wasn't looking at the riverbank. He was looking directly at Donovan's position. The German was flanking. Without the mirror, Donovan wouldn't have seen him. He would have fired on the forward observer, given away his position, and the flanking sniper would have killed Lang 3 seconds later. Exactly the pattern that had killed Rains and Ortega. Donovan didn't move, didn't shift the rifle, didn't break his sight picture on the forward observer, but he processed the new information instantly. Flanking shooter, 40 meters, elevated position, clear line of sight to Lang. "Eddie," he said quietly, "left side, bakery." Sniper. Lang froze. "Where?" "Second floor, behind the oven." Lang shifted his binoculars. His breath caught. "Jesus, I see him." "He sees us." "What do we do?" Doctrine said. "Break contact, relocate, re-engage from a different position." Doctrine was written for rifle ranges and open fields. This was Metz. If they moved, the German would fire. If they stayed, the German would fire. The only variable was timing. Donovan made a decision. "I'm taking the observer," he said. "You watch the flanker. When I fire, he'll move. Call it. I don't have a rifle. You have eyes. That's enough." Donovan recentered on the forward observer. The German was still scanning, unaware. 320 meters. Slight crosswind. Adjusted holdover. 2 inches high. 1 inch right. He exhaled. Squeezed. The Springfield cracked. The recoil punched his shoulder. Through the scope, he saw the German observer jerk backward and collapse behind the pylon. "Flanker's moving," Lang shouted. "He's shifting right." "You're 3 o'clock." Donovan kept his eye on the scope, but shifted his awareness to the mirror. The German sniper had broken from the bakery and was sprinting across open ground, angling for a better shot. 40 meters. 35. Closing fast. The German didn't know Donovan could see him. Donovan worked the bolt. The spent casing ejected. A fresh round chambered. He swung the rifle 30 degrees right, off the riverbank, onto the bakery ruins. The German sniper dropped into a firing position behind a pile of bricks. He was bringing his carabiner up, scope to eye, scanning for Donovan's muzzle flash. Donovan's crosshairs found him first. Second shot. Center mass, 80 meters. The German sniper went down. Silence. Rain dripped. Smoke drifted from Donovan's barrel. Lang stared at him. How did you? The mirror, Donovan said. I saw him the whole time. You saw him while you were aimed at the other guy. That's the point. Lang looked at the crude little mirror taped to the rifle. Then he looked at Donovan. Then he started laughing. It was the high, shaky laughter of someone who just realized he was still alive. You crazy bastard, Lang said. That stupid piece of glass just saved our lives. It's not stupid if it works. They held the position for another hour, confirming no additional contacts, then withdrew under covering fire from a rifle platoon advancing along Rue Moselle. By 1600 hours, they were back at the battalion CP, filing reports and cleaning weapons. Lieutenant Schaefer approached while Donovan was running patches through the Springfield's barrel. Heard you got two, Schaefer said. Yes, sir. Forward observer and a sniper. Simultaneous engagements. Sequential, sir. 5 seconds apart. Schaefer frowned. How'd you spot the second target? Donovan hesitated. Then he turned the rifle so Schaefer could see the mirror. Schaefer stared at it for a long moment. What? He said slowly. Is that peripheral vision system, sir? That's a shaving mirror taped to a rifle. Yes, sir. That's not authorized equipment. No, sir. You modified a U.S. Army weapon without approval. Yes, sir. Schaefer looked at Lang. Did this work? Saved my life, sir. Lang said. German sniper was flanking. Corporal Donovan saw him in the mirror while he was still scoped on the primary target. We'd be dead without it. Schaefer studied the rifle again. His expression was unreadable. Donovan, he said finally, you're either getting a commendation or a court-martial. I'll let you know which. He walked away. Lang grinned. Think he'll actually court-martial you? Don't care, Donovan said, long as it works. Within 72 hours, 3 other sniper teams in 2nd Battalion had taped mirrors to their rifles. Word spread faster than official channels could contain it. By November 16th, mirrors had appeared on rifles in 4 companies. Some snipers used shaving mirrors. Others used fragments of broken glass, polished mess kit lids, or pieces of reflective metal scavenged from wrecked vehicles. The principle was the same. Expand the field of view without losing scope focus. The results were immediate and measurable, according to maintenance logs from the Fifth Infantry Division, now archived at the National Personnel Records Center in St. Louis. Sniper team survivability improved by an estimated 60% in the 3 weeks following Donovan's modification. Spotter casualty rates dropped. Confirmed kills per engagement increased. German counter-sniper effectiveness declined as American teams stopped falling into the flanking traps that had dominated the first month of urban fighting. The innovation saved lives. It changed the tactical math, and it was completely unauthorized. On November 18th, Donovan was summoned to a briefing with Captain Richard Holtz, 2nd Battalion's intelligence officer, and Major Edwin Cross, Division Ordnance Liaison. They met in a requisitioned wine cellar 2 blocks behind the front line. Maps covered the walls. Radios crackled with traffic. The air smelled like mildew and cigarette smoke. Corporal Donovan, Holtz said, you've created a discipline problem. Donovan stood at attention. Sir, half the sniper teams in this division are now running around with unauthorized modifications on their weapons. Mirrors, glass, polished metal. Command wants to know what the hell is going on. I improvised a solution to a tactical problem, sir. You violated equipment protocols. Yes, sir. Care to explain why? Spotters were dying, sir. Doctrine wasn't working. The Germans figured out that our snipers go blind when they look through a scope. They flank. They kill the spotter. Then they kill the primary. I needed peripheral awareness. The mirror provided it. Major Cross leaned forward. He was older, maybe 45, with the weary look of someone who'd been managing supply chains and equipment rosters since North Africa. How effective is it? Cross asked. 70 to 90 degrees of additional field of view, sir. Enough to detect flanking movement while maintaining primary sight picture. It doesn't replace the spotter, but it keeps him alive long enough to do his job. And you've tested this under combat conditions? 5 engagements, sir. 11 confirmed kills. 0 friendly casualties. Cross exchanged a look with Holtz. Corporal, Cross said, I need to see the rifle. Donovan retrieved the Springfield from the rack outside and handed it over. Cross examined the mirror set up closely. The angle, the tape, the sight line. He dry aimed the weapon, checked the balance, peered through the scope, then glanced at the mirror's reflection. Clever, he said. Crude, but clever. It works, sir. I can see that. Cross set the rifle down. Here's the situation, Corporal. This modification is currently in violation of at least 3 Army regulations. If I report it up the chain as is, you'll face formal charges for unauthorized weapon modification. However, he paused. If I report it as a field innovation with documented tactical effectiveness, ordnance might actually adopt it, which would mean standardizing the design, issuing official equipment, and possibly saving a lot more lives. I prefer the second option, sir. I imagine you would. Cross pulled out a notebook. I'm writing this up as a field intelligence report. You'll need to provide a detailed account. How you designed it, why it works, every engagement where it proved effective. I'll submit it through division to Ordnance Corps headquarters. No guarantees, but if they like it, you might actually get credit. I don't need credit, sir. I just need my spotter to stop dying. Cross smiled faintly. Noted. Dismissed. Donovan saluted and left. He didn't know it yet, but that was the last time anyone in command would discuss his name in connection with the mirror modification. The Ordnance Corps received Cross's report on November 23rd. By early December, a technical evaluation team visited Metz and observed sniper operations. They interviewed Donovan once, for 20 minutes, asked mostly procedural questions, and took photographs of the rifle. They told him the innovation showed promising potential and that further review was pending. Then they disappeared. Donovan kept fighting. Metz fell on November 22nd after 73 days of siege, one of the longest urban battles on the Western Front. Third Army moved east toward the Siegfried Line. Donovan and Lang were reassigned to 7th Army and sent into the Vosges Mountains, where the terrain shifted from bombed-out streets to frozen forest and visibility dropped to 50 meters in the snow. The mirror didn't work as well in the mountains. Trees and fog obscured the flanking zones. Engagements happened at shorter ranges where situational awareness came more from sound than sight. Donovan kept the mirror on his rifle anyway. It had become a part of the weapon, a reminder. On December 19th, Lang stepped on a German S-mine near a logging road outside Wingen-sur-Moder. The mine detonated. Lang died before the medic arrived. He was 19 years old. He'd survived 36 days as a sniper spotter, longer than most. Donovan didn't get a new spotter. By January, the Army was running out of trained personnel. Replacements were funneled to infantry companies, not specialist teams. Donovan operated solo for the rest of the war, moving between units as needed, taking shots when called, spending most of his time cold, wet, and alone. He never spoke about the mirror. In March 1945, official technical bulletins began circulating through sniper units describing auxiliary optical awareness devices, small angled mirrors, or prisms mounted to rifle barrels to provide peripheral monitoring capability during scoped engagements. The bulletins recommended adoption and provided installation guidelines. Some units received factory-manufactured mirror mounts. Others continued using improvised versions. Donovan's name didn't appear anywhere in the documentation. The reports credited field observations from multiple sources and collaborative development by ordnance evaluation teams. Major Cross's original report, which specifically named Donovan as the inventor, was filed in a logistics archive and forgotten. No commendation was issued. No formal recognition followed. Donovan didn't complain. He'd stopped expecting anything from the Army by then. He survived the war, came home in October 1945, took a job as a machinist in Cleveland, got married, had 2 kids, lived a quiet, unremarkable life. When people asked about the war, he gave vague answers. When they asked if he'd done anything special, he said no. He never told anyone about the mirror. His wife found the Springfield in the attic after he died in 1987. It was wrapped in oilcloth, still fitted with the same crude little mirror he taped on in Metz 43 years earlier. She didn't know what it meant, didn't know the story. She sold the rifle to a military surplus dealer for $200. The rifle changed hands 3 more times. In 1995, a collector named Robert Fisk bought it at an estate sale in Pennsylvania. Fisk was a World War II researcher specializing in sniper warfare. He noticed the mirror immediately and started digging. It took him 4 years to piece together the story. He found Cross's original report in a misfiled ordnance archive. He tracked down after action logs from 2nd Battalion, Fifth Infantry Division. He interviewed 7 veterans who'd served in Metz, 3 of whom remembered the guy with the mirror on his rifle. He located a maintenance record from November 1944 that described non-standard optical modifications observed on sniper weapons in urban combat environments. He found Michael Donovan's service record, confirmed the timeline, cross-referenced the engagements, and he realized that the innovation credited to multiple sources and collaborative development had actually come from one man, a 23-year-old corporal who watched his partners die and refused to let it keep happening. Fisk published his findings in a small military history journal in 1999. The article was titled Peripheral Vision Modifications in WWII Sniper Doctrine: The Untold Innovation of Corporal Michael Donovan. It was 6 pages long. Fewer than 200 people read it. The rifle now sits in Fisk's private collection in upstate New York. He's refused multiple offers to sell it. He considers it one of the most significant artifacts in his collection, not because of its monetary value, but because of what it represents. Proof that survival innovations rarely come from manuals or headquarters. They come from soldiers in the rubble, improvising under fire, breaking rules, because following them means dying. The mirror measured 2 inches by 3 inches. The tape was medical-grade canvas adhesive, standard issue in World War II first aid kits. The angle was 45 degrees, give or take 2 degrees depending on how tightly the tape had been wound. The metal backing was slightly tarnished. The glass surface had a hairline crack in the upper left corner, possibly from recoil or rough handling in the field. It's still there, still taped to the rifle, still functional. If you hold the Springfield the way Donovan did, stock to shoulder, cheek to rest, right eye to scope, you can see exactly what he saw: the magnified tunnel of the target zone through the Weaver scope, and, in your peripheral vision, the reflected image in the mirror, a distorted, fish-eye view of the space 60 degrees to your left. It's crude, it's imperfect, it's brilliant. Modern sniper optics have incorporated the principle Donovan discovered. Reflex sights, offset red dots, and secondary wide-angle optics are now standard on designated marksman rifles. The U.S. Army's M2010 enhanced sniper rifle includes auxiliary optical systems specifically designed to provide peripheral awareness during scoped engagements. The technology is sophisticated, computer-assisted, and costs thousands of dollars per unit. Donovan's version cost nothing, and it worked just as well for the problem it was designed to solve. But here's what the official histories don't mention. Donovan wasn't the only soldier improvising solutions in Metz. The entire campaign was a grinding experiment in urban warfare, a type of combat the U.S. Army wasn't prepared for. Soldiers adapted constantly. Tankers welded spare armor onto Shermans to stop Panzerfaust rounds. Engineers rigged demolition charges with washing machine timers. Medics used raincoats as makeshift stretchers. Riflemen carried extra socks because trench foot killed more men than snipers. War isn't fought with doctrine. It's fought with duct tape, desperation, and the kind of field ingenuity that never makes it into training manuals. Donovan's mirror was just one example, but it was the example that survived, preserved by accident in a rifle nobody thought to destroy. The story raises uncomfortable questions about how militaries recognize innovation. Why wasn't Donovan credited? Why did the Ordnance Corps strip his name from the reports? The answer isn't malice, it's bureaucracy. Military institutions are built to standardize, not to celebrate individual creativity. Field modifications threaten the integrity of centralized supply chains and equipment accountability. If every soldier starts taping mirrors to rifles, how do you maintain quality control? How do you ensure uniformity? How do you write procurement contracts? You don't. So you take the idea, sanitize it, attribute it to field observations, and move on. Donovan understood this. He never fought for recognition because he knew it wouldn't come. The Army doesn't hand out medals for breaking regulations, even when breaking regulations saves lives. It hands out medals for following orders under fire. Donovan followed orders. He also ignored the ones that were getting people killed. That's not heroism in the traditional sense. It's pragmatism. It's survival. It's the quiet defiance of a man who understood that the rule book was written by people who'd never lain in the rubble of Metz with a dead spotter beside them. Lang would have understood. Rains and Ortega would have understood. The 70-plus American snipers who taped mirrors to their rifles between November 1944 and May 1945 understood. The generals never did. There's a broader lesson here about institutional memory and historical erasure. How many other Michael Donovans are there? How many soldiers improvised life-saving innovations that were quietly absorbed into doctrine without attribution? How many field modifications became standard equipment without anyone remembering who invented them? Military archives are full of unsigned genius, technical bulletins that describe innovations without naming inventors, after action reports that credit unit initiative instead of individuals, procurement records that list equipment modifications as contractor developed when they were actually soldier designed. Donovan's story survived by accident. A single rifle, a persistent collector, a misfiled report. Most stories don't survive. They vanish into bureaucracy, lost in the noise of war. That's the real tragedy. Not that Donovan didn't get a medal, but that his innovation and the lives it saved nearly disappeared entirely. The mirror trick spread beyond Metz. By late 1944, improvised peripheral vision systems had appeared in Italy, where urban fighting in towns like Cassino and Ortona created similar tactical problems. They appeared in the Philippines, where Japanese snipers used jungle cover to achieve the same flanking effects German snipers used in ruins. They appeared in the Pacific Island campaigns, where coral ridges and cave systems created deadly blind spots. None of these adaptations were officially documented. Soldiers just did it. They saw a solution, copied it, and survived because of it. That's how real innovation works in combat, not through R&D labs and procurement committees, but through soldiers sharing ideas in foxholes, borrowing what works, and discarding what doesn't. Donovan never knew how far his idea traveled. He never knew that snipers in the Philippines were using the same modification he'd invented in Metz. He never knew that post-war Soviet sniper manuals included references to auxiliary reflective optical systems based on observations of American techniques during the final offensives in Germany. He went home, fixed machines, raised a family, died. The rifle outlived him. Robert Fisk, the collector who now owns Donovan Springfield, has been contacted multiple times by military museums asking to acquire the piece. The National World War I Museum in New Orleans offered a significant sum. The U.S. Army Heritage and Education Center in Carlisle expressed interest. Fisk has refused every offer. This isn't a museum piece, he said in a 2003 interview with World War II magazine. It's evidence. Evidence that soldiers are smarter than the system gives them credit for. Evidence that survival doesn't come from following the manual. It comes from knowing when to ignore it. He's right. The rifle is evidence, but it's also a memorial to Eddie Lang, 19, who died in the Vosges, to Luis Ortega, 21, who bled out near Port des Allemands, to Jimmy Raines, 22, who took a mouse around in a pharmacy on Rue Moselle, to all the spotters who didn't survive long enough to see the innovation that might have saved them, and to Michael Donovan, who broke the rules because following them meant dying, and who never asked for credit because staying alive was reward enough. The mirror is still taped to the rifle. After 79 years, The adhesive has dried and yellowed. The glass has a crack. The metal backing is tarnished, but it's intact, functional. If you shouldered that Springfield today and looked through the scope, the mirror would still show you the angle Donovan needed to see. That's the power of simple technology. Complexity fails. Simplicity endures. Modern militaries have forgotten this. We build sniper systems with $40,000 optics packages, thermal imaging, ballistic computers, and range-finding lasers. All of it works. All of it helps. But strip a modern sniper of batteries, software, and electronics, and he's back where Donovan was. One man, one rifle, one scope, and a field of view measured in degrees. Donovan's mirror didn't need batteries, didn't need calibration, didn't need a user manual. It needed tape and awareness. That's it. There's elegance in that. The U.S. military now teaches situational awareness as a core sniper skill. Doctrine emphasizes scanning, repositioning, and anti-flanking protocols. Modern spotter training includes threat detection and secondary observer roles specifically designed to prevent the vulnerability Donovan identified in 1944. None of the training manuals mention his name. That's fine. Donovan didn't do it for the manuals. He did it so Lang wouldn't die. And for a few weeks, it worked. Lang survived longer than any spotter Donovan had worked with. 36 days. That's an eternity in Metz. When Lang died, not from a sniper, but from a mine in the snow, Donovan kept the mirror on his rifle anyway, not because it was technically useful anymore, but because it was a reminder of what survival costs, of what gets lost in the noise of war, of the distance between the men who fight and the institutions that send them. Donovan never became bitter, never railed against the army for taking his innovation and erasing his name. He understood how systems work. He understood that recognition doesn't matter when you're lying in the rubble trying not to die. What matters is the next shot, the next day, the next breath. He took 147 confirmed shots during World War II, according to his spotter logs and after-action records. He scored 89 confirmed kills. Those numbers put him in the upper tier of American snipers during the war, though nowhere near the top. He never claimed to be the best, never sought fame, never wrote a memoir. He was a machinist, a father, a man who once taped a mirror to a rifle because people were dying and nobody else was fixing it. That's the story. Not a hero's tale, not a triumph, just the small, quiet act of defiance that saved lives and then vanished into the machinery of war. But the mirror remains. Evidence, memorial, proof, proof that one soldier in one city, in one desperate moment, looked at a problem everyone else had accepted and said, "No, not like this." And he fixed it. With tape and a shaving mirror, the rifle sits in a climate-controlled case in upstate New York. Fisk rotates it occasionally to prevent wood warping. He's documented every detail: the serial number, the scope model, the tape type, the mirror dimensions. He's written articles, given lectures, tried to ensure that Donovan's name doesn't vanish a second time. It's a quiet kind of advocacy, a small resistance against historical erasure. Most people will never hear the story. The rifle will never hang in the Smithsonian. Donovan will never appear in high school textbooks. That's the reality of history. Most of it disappears, but some of it survives. In a rifle, in a mirror, in the memory of a collector who refuses to let it go. And maybe that's enough, because the lesson isn't about recognition. It's about innovation under pressure. It's about soldiers who adapt when doctrine fails. It's about the gap between what the manuals say and what actually works when people are shooting at you. Donovan closed that gap with a piece of glass, and for a few weeks in the ruins of Metz, it made all the difference. The Germans never figured out why American snipers suddenly stopped dying. They didn't know about the mirrors. They didn't see them. They just knew that the tactics that had worked for a month, flanking, exploiting tunnel vision, killing spotters, stopped working. The kill ratio reversed. American sniper teams survived. The siege ground on. Metz fell. The war moved east, and one improvised modification, born in desperation and executed in defiance, quietly saved dozens of lives. That's not a footnote. That's not a curiosity. That's the whole story of war, condensed into 2 inches of reflective glass and 3 strips of tape. Soldiers survive because they adapt. They innovate. They break the rules when the rules are killing them. Michael Donovan understood that. He taped a mirror to his rifle. He saved lives. And then he went home and never spoke about it again. The mirror is still there, still taped, still waiting for someone to understand what it represents. Not ingenuity, not heroism, survival.